Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys. In 1991, the revelation that he had eaten or otherwise defiled some of his victims revolted the nation. His death may not be a shock.
You took my 17-year-old son away from me. I'll never get a chance to tell him that I loved him. I'd have a chance to tell him that I loved him the last time I saw him, which will be a year tomorrow.
I think of Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know the man personally, but I'll tell you this, that's a good example as to why insanity doesn't belong in a courtroom.
Netflix is recounting the horrifying true story of Jeffrey Dahmer, and countless viewers have witnessed Evan Peters' transformation into the notorious figure. But while some facts have been adjusted to fit Netflix's perception of the serial killer's plan, others have not because the streaming giant deviated from the actual storyline. Let's get right into it. The Monster series, a recreation of Jeffrey Dahmer's life, might make you wonder if the movie is real. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee in 1960 and had a rough childhood, with an early fascination with dead animals and dissection. Beginning in 1978, he murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys, conducting necrophilia and cannibalism, and saving body parts and bones. Although some facts have been modified to accommodate Netflix's interpretation of the serial killer's plot. Dahmer's actions are evocative of a real-life horror film, but more upsetting, which may explain why others have questioned the line between fact and fiction. So what are the 10 things Netflix is hiding about Jeffrey Dahmer? 10. Dahmer killed Dean Vaughn. According to the series, Glenda Cleveland encountered Dean Vaughn, a new inhabitant of the Oxford Apartments, in episode 7. And because of who Dahmer is, she grew anxious after seeing him talking to Dahmer in the hall. But that was not the case. The real story was not followed through in the series because it solely directs the viewer in one direction. Dean Vaughn was clearly a tenant in the building. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm Dean. I just moved in 308 and he was discovered strangled in his flat in May of 1991. Of course, Jeffrey was interrogated about the strange death and even detained, but because there was evidence found, he was finally apprehended. He denied knowing him, and no evidence linking him to Dean Vaughn's death was found both times. Well, Dean Vaughn's murder remains a mystery. To date, Ronald Flowers was saved. Ronald Flowers was residing in Lake County, Illinois, when he encountered Jeffrey Dahmer and averted his death. Ronald Flowers drove to Milwaukee on April 2, 1988, to buy a waterbed from one of his friends, but events unfolded so that by the end of the night, he was alone in a parking lot with a car that wouldn't start. Flowers' pals had fled by this point, and he couldn't call for aid. But then, Jeffrey Dahmer appeared. Dahmer invited Ronald Flowers to his grandmother's house to pick up another automobile. When Dahmer arrived at his grandmother's house, he offered Ronald a cup of coffee that he had poisoned. Ronald passed out quickly at a Woken County General Hospital in Milwaukee with scars all over his body. The series, however, didn't mention that he was also covered in abrasions, and he thought he was assaulted well afterward. He testified that he didn't know how he got there. The series provides a fictional scenario where he talked about Jeffrey seem weird and that he must have split something in his drink, but nothing was done by the cops. Ronald also approached Dahmer 1 year later, according to Ryan Murphy's Netflix show, but Dahmer claimed he didn't know who Ronald was. 8. Glenda Cleveland didn't live at the Oxford Apartments. Glenda Cleveland is played by actress Niecy Nash in the series, and it appeared that she was frequently disregarded in the Jeffrey Dahmer case. The series revealed that she primarily talks to him about the stench and noise coming from his flat through her vents. But in real life, Glenda Cleveland lived in a completely separate building from Jeffrey Dahmer, and the character is most likely a hybrid of Glenda Cleveland and Pamela Bass, the lady who lived across the hall from Dahmer and may have accidentally devoured human meats delivered to her by Jeffrey. Glenda Cleveland also kept calling Milwaukee police after her daughter Sandra Smith and niece Nicole Childress told her about a boy they tried to help. 7. Milwaukee police returned the victim to his APT. A pivotal event in the series occurs when 2 police officers are dispatched to Dahmer's apartment on Cleveland's behalf. It's seen a young man outside the building, naked and incoherent, who turned out to be 14-year-old. Conorak sent the SAM phone. Cleveland and her family sought Sandra Smith and her daughter Nicole Childress to prove that something was badly wrong. But cops finally believed Dahmer's tale that the 2 lovers were fighting. The event happened in late May 1991. In real life, however, when Dahmer returned to his apartment, he convinced the cops, John Balzer, Zach, and Joseph Gabrusch, that the boy was his lover, Cleveland, who was at the scene addressing the police and attempting to convince them that he was a kid that was not considered, and Dahmer murdered him after the police had left. Unfortunately, the officers Balzer, Zach, and Gabrusch were suspended from their duties in real life, but were named Officers of the Year in the Netflix adaptation 6.
A startling admission about the evil urges that propelled him to kill.
Do you still?
Dahmer always wore his glasses. Jeffrey Dahmer is on trial for murder near the end of the series, and while the majority of the sequences were faithfully portrayed, one aspect was left out or difference. Evan Peters, who played Jeffrey Dahmer, almost always wears the serial killer's iconic glasses, yet the actual Jeffrey Dahmer didn't wear them during most of his trials, and his reasoning is not implausible. He didn't want to face the jury or the victim's family, although that is a little false and a largely true-to-life series. His decision to remove his glasses is significant since it reveals that he didn't have the strength to face his crime and that he felt no accountability to anyone's father and son relationship. According to the series, Jeffrey Dahmer blamed his serial murderer status on his father, who frequently took him out for points and killing animals. However, in real life, Jeffrey Dahmer stated that he is solely responsible and to be blamed for his actions. For someone who didn't display any feelings or appear to care about anything, he was extremely protective of his parents. He said nothing but that no one was to blame for what he did. Not pornography, not society, not even his family. Jeffrey Dahmer took the fall. Lionel Dahmer's memoir, also reflecting on his son's upbringing and dissecting a variety of possible causes that may have contributed to his son's depravity, was published about a year before his son's death. The series recounts the book's genesis in episode 8, followed by his moderate critical success and eventual financial failure.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
However, the majority of the other supposition in the episode is based on anecdotes from Lionel's book 4. Detective Patrick Kennedy,
and authorities here say they also are not ruling out the possibility that Dahmer may be linked to even more,
had a far larger part to play. The character of Patrick Kennedy did not play a significant role in the series, but in real life, he played a considerably larger role than just interrogating Dahmer in the station. He was called to the site and explained that when he saw the head in the freezer, he shouted, but that part did not appear in the series. That scene could have made more sense in the film, since Patrick Kennedy is not a small-time cop, and screams indicate that what he saw was very horrifying. Patrick Kennedy also spent more time with Dahmer following his release, and at some point we could call them friends. He was also the one who lent him the blue striped shirt he wore to court. In case you didn't know Scarver's motives, Scarver's character in the series offers justifications for executing Dahmer. Even at some points, he was praying for advice on how to deal with the serial killer's presence.
Said he was going to eat your heart?
Yes, that's correct.
It never completely goes away. I'll probably have to live with it for the rest of my life.
Scarver, however, pled insanity during police interrogations, and later at the murder trial, with his psychologist stating that Scarver believed he was the chosen one for death.
Rain or shine, sharing your dreams, your heart and your...
and frequently heard voices. Scarver afterward modified his plea to no contest and is still in jail today, aside from the information on his new trial. The public didn't hear from Scarver until he spoke with the New York Post in 2015. Scarver stated in the interview that his motivations for killing Dahmer had nothing to do with the nature of his crimes or the ethnicity of his victims, but rather with the serial killer's lack of contrition. He said in an interview he crossed the line with several people, including inmates and prison officials. Some prisoners are regretful, but Dahmer was not one of them. 2. The original plot drama is good, but you will agree that not all stories are good for retelling. The entire incident, portraying Jeffrey Dahmer's life, was more of a drama to horror compared to what it was in real life. The movie was dramatized by Netflix and Evan Peters, who played Dahmer, to make it more interesting. Well, after all, what movies are about. But Jeffrey Dahmer's real life and deeds are far from entertaining. There's a reason why so many people recoiled when Netflix announced the release of Dahmer Monster, and that is because of the person behind the story how the real Dahmer was killed. The real Dahmer, who was 34 at the time of his death, was attacked and beaten to death by Christopher Scarver, a fellow inmate at a Wisconsin prison, on November 29, 1994. A convicted murderer, Scarver did claim that God told him to kill Dahmer and Jesse Anderson, another inmate who murdered his wife and tried to pin his crimes on 2 black men. In the Netflix series, Scarver Furley Mack kills Anderson. Jeff harms before turning his attention to Jeff Evan Peters, as he's nicknamed in the series. But in reality, Scarver confessed to attacking Dahmer first, then Anderson. These are the sorts of changes to history Monster makes. The details that matter are still intact, but through imagined conversations and small tweaks, the story is made to flow better as a drama. What do you think about the movie and how the characters portray their role? Let us know in the comments below. Did you enjoy this video? If you did, make sure to give it a like and check out more awesome ones on the Data Society, the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.